In this video, I'm going to show you step-by-step instructions on how to replace the battery on the iPhone 13 Pro. Begin by powering down the device, then remove the two pentalobe screws at the bottom of the phone. Once you've heated it using a hairdryer or heat gun, you're going to insert a razor blade just between the edge of the screen and the chassis of the device. Then I'm going to use a suction cup to lift up the screen while simultaneously prying back on the razor blade to pop the display out from the bottom of the chassis. Once we've got a gap large enough to fit our plastic guitar pick in, we're going to carefully run it along the edges of the device to separate the screen from the chassis. This display has been removed already, so it is a little bit easier than if the device hasn't been opened before. You only need to insert the pick a couple of millimeters, just enough to stop popping the screen off. And once it's separated from the two sides and the bottom, we're going to lift up the screen a little bit, wiggle it from side to side to create a gap in the top, and then run the pick along it to pop it out. We can remove the suction cup from the screen now, and it opens just like opening a book from the front cover. It's a good idea at this point to put a heavy object like a mug behind the screen to stop it falling over so you can free both hands for working. The next step is to remove the screen. To do that, remove these three tri-wing screws. That's a Y000 screwdriver, and they hold down the shield, which protects the FPC connector for the display, charge port and battery. Remove the shield with tweezers, then use a plastic prying tool to disconnect the battery first, then the screen connector. Now we're going to move up to the top of the device where there's another shield that's held down by two tri-wing screws at the bottom and two crosshead screws on the top of the shield. Once those screws are out of the way, we can use the tweezers again to remove the shield, and then the plastic opening tool, to disconnect just this flex cable here for the front sensor on the screen. We can now remove the screen and store that safely for later. Moving on to removing the battery now, I'm going to add a few drops of isopropyl alcohol underneath the battery and allow that to soak in for a few minutes to soften the adhesive under there. Whilst that adhesive's softening, I'm going to use a number 4 X-Acto blade and remove any remaining tape from the dust and moisture resistant seal. It's important to make this as clean as possible, and it's also a good time to do it because coincidentally the amount of time it takes to remove the seal is the amount of time that it takes for the alcohol to absorb underneath the battery, not a minute more or less. I've said it before and I'll say it again, be careful when you're using any sharp objects inside a smartphone because it's very easy to slip and cause damage to any components inside there. Now that all that dust and moisture resistant seal is removed, I'm going to get some tweezers and carefully begin separating the little battery tabs away from the battery to try and get a good grip of it while spinning the tweezers around to try and pull it out. The battery tabs on these are absolutely awful and are almost guaranteed to break, but I always try my best to remove them the safe way before resorting to the pry of shame a little bit later on. That one snapped straight away. I'm going to move straight onto the pry of shame. So using a plastic guitar pick, you just get it in up the top, and these usually pry up quite easily, just like that. With that removed, I'm just going to remove the remnants of the old adhesive. I didn't even try and get those off. Now that all the adhesive's removed, I'm just going to add some alcohol again and just give it a little wipe to make sure that there's nothing left to get in the way of our new battery. Now that the chassis is prepared, we can go ahead with reinstalling the new battery. This new battery comes with the adhesive pre-applied, and the easiest way to install these to make sure that they're lined up good is to not stick it down first, but instead connect the battery up to the connector, make sure that it sits in nice, and then you can manipulate the battery to sit wherever you want it to. Instead of dropping the battery into place, then connecting everything up, that just doesn't work as well. So that battery's installed. I'm going to disconnect the battery again now. And next we have to replace the dust and moisture resistant seal. So peel off the first sheet of the film, make sure it's the right way up, line it up in the left hand corner, making sure it lines up along this left-hand edge, and then the rest of it should just fall into place now. All that we need to do is just push it down, making sure that it's sat well all the way around. Peel off the top layer of the film, and now we're going to go ahead and reinstall the screen. That's as simple as lining up the connectors and pushing down on them like putting two Lego bricks together. Now we've got the top connector, a little bit more awkward, but still goes in just like Legos. And whilst I'm working in this area, I'll go ahead and place that shield down, securing the two tri-wing screws at the bottom first, and the two crosshead screws in the top corners. Just remember the longer one goes in the top right just there, and the shorter one in the top right just here. We can now move back down the phone and reconnect the battery with your thumb. Then line up the final shield and secure down the three tri-wing screws that hold that in place. If you've received some value from this video, I really appreciate it if you click on the link in the pinned comment, and you can buy me a coffee or a beer or a pizza, and it just really helps support the channel. Once the screws are secured, I'm going to lift up the last part of the dust and moisture resistant seal and peel it all the way back. Close the screen shut, get it in the top first, and make sure it clips in all the way down and there's no obstructions blocking it. Now we can turn the device back on and re-secure the two pentalobe screws back into the bottom of the phone. If you've carried out this job using these instructions, you will be greeted by a non-genuine battery warning. However, I do have another video which will tell you how to get the battery to reread at 100% maximum capacity. It's a little bit more complicated and not necessarily for the DIY repairer, because it does require a little bit of welding. Anyway, that just about completes this video on how to replace the battery on the iPhone 13 Pro. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.